incredible job of running their states. I think they'll do an incredible job too. After having gotten to know so many of them, I think each one of them will do an incredible job. And again, the federal government is there. We have ventilators if they need them. We have beds if they need them. We have hospitals if they need them. We have a testing capacity that's now second to none, where, again, other countries are calling us. Countries that you thought were doing well are calling us for help on testing. So we're there to help. And with that, if you have a few questions, we'll take them. And if not, that would be okay too. Yeah, go ahead, please, Jeff.
Mr. President, two questions. First, on your announcement about the WHO, I understand your grievances with them, but can you address why it is the correct time to do this now in the middle of the
Well, we're going to be dealing with countries, and we're going to be dealing with leaders of different parts of the world. We spend 500 million a year. We have for many years, far more than anybody else, including China. And I mean, look, I read off a long list of problems that we have, and we've had problems with them for years. It doesn't matter. We're looking at a term of 60 to 90 days. We're doing a very thorough investigation right now as we speak. But this should have been done by previous administrations a long time ago. And when you look at the mistakes that were made, all of the mistakes that were made, it's just something we have to look at. And it is very China-centric. I told that to President Xi. I said the World Health Organization is very China-centric, meaning whatever it is, China was always right. You can't do that. Can't do that. Not right. And we spend, and again, it's not a question of money, but when we're spending $500 million and China's spending 38 million, 34 million, 40 million, 42 million in a case, it's, again, not money, but it's not right. So we'll see. This is an evaluation period, but in the meantime, we're putting a hold on all funds going to World Health. We will be able to take that money and channel it to the areas that most need it. And that's another way of doing it, but we have not been treated properly.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
Mr. President, you mentioned that you're going to be speaking with all the governors tomorrow, make recommendations.
On probably Thursday.
On Thursday. What if they don't listen to you or take your advice or obey you? Will you consider taking away their federal funding?
I don't want to say that. They'll listen. They'll be fine. I think we're going to have a good relationship. They need the federal government, not only for funding, and I'm not saying take it away, but they need it for advice. They'll need maybe equipment that we have. We have a tremendous stockpile that we're in the process of completing. We're in a very good position. Again, the cupboard was bare when I got here. Nobody ever thought a thing, in all fairness to previous administrations, nobody ever thought anything like this was going to happen, but it did happen. No, the governors will be very, very respectful of the presidency. Let individual governors run individual states and come to us if they have difficulty, and we will help them. Yeah, John?
You talked about having testing and tracing equipment and the facility for that in place to open up the government. Dr. Fauci said this morning that critical testing and tracing ability does not currently exist.
Well, I don't know. Look, I don't know. I don't know what he said.
My question is,
My
question is, will it exist by May 1st?
The individual governors have testing. The individual governors, we have many forms of testing, and new testing is being developed. Our country has to get open, and it will get open, and it'll get open safely and hopefully quickly. Some areas quicker than other areas, but there is tremendous testing, and the governors will use whatever testing is necessary. And if they're not satisfied with their testing, they shouldn't open, but they'll use whatever testing is necessary. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back to the WHO. Will you support the organization again if Tedros is immediately replaced, or do you want to see him step down as possible?
Well, we're doing an investigation. I don't know the gentleman, but I know there have been problems, and it's been very unfair to the United States, just like the World Trade Organization has been very, very unfair. And now they're coming into line when they consider China a developing nation. And because China's a developing nation, they take massive advantage of the United States. Why didn't other presidents stop this? I've been talking about it from the day I got in, and we're looking at that very, very strongly. World trade, W. So I have a problem with world health and world trade, both of them. I'm not sure which is worse. You want to know the truth, but we'll figure it out. Okay.
Mr. President.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Chris.
President.
Mr. President. You were just criticizing the WHO for praising China as transparent, but you were saying many of the same things about China just a couple of months ago. So, I mean, how do you square your decision to?
Well, I did a trade deal with China, where China's supposed to be spending $250 billion in our country. We're going to be watching very much to see. Now, we got a little bit waylaid by the virus. But look, I'd love to have a good relationship with China. But if you look, and we made a phenomenal deal. China has paid, because of me, China has paid us tens of billions of dollars over the course of a very short period of time. Billions of it. Some of that money has been spent to farmers where they were targeted by China. We cannot let that happen. We can't let that happen. So we ended up signing a very good trade deal. Now I want to see if China lives up to it. I know President Xi. I think he will live up to it. If he doesn't live up to it, that will be okay too, because we have very, very good alternatives.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Today, 600,000 cases, 25,000 deaths. I know you want to blame the WHO, but I've spoken to hundreds of people across the country in the last few weeks who say they still can't get tested, and that they aren't social distancing because
So
they
the governors, yeah. Excuse me. I know your question. You ready? The governors are supposed to do testing. It's up to the governors. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, please.
That's not the question.
Quiet.
The
Quiet.
question, Mr. President,
Quiet.
the question is,
back
they
to
say
May
that
1.
they are not,
Mr.
that
President,
they are
how many-
following your lead, that they are not social
The
distancing.
governors are doing the testing. It's now not up, and it hasn't been up to the federal government. Go ahead.
Mr. President, I
The
mean, I have
question
a
is
quick
about
follow on the
social
WHO, but
distancing,
if,
sir.
if
The
May
question
1
I told them when they put this guy here, it's nothing but trouble. He's a showboat. If you keep talking, I'll leave and you can have it out with the rest of these people. If you keep talking, I'm going to leave and you can have it out with them. Just a loudmouth. Go ahead.
If you could kind of clarify, are you basically lifting your slow the spread before the
No,
May 1 deadline?
no,
And then,
I'm
and
not
then
at
how,
all,
and
no.
then how many
The
states?
governors are going to be running their individual states. Some of them will say, no, I can't open now. And some of them may last longer than we even would think. Others will say, I can. You can go. I don't want to mention states, but there are numerous states that are in great shape right now. They're viewing the rest of the country like, we don't even believe this is happening. We have a lot of those states. They're set to open practically now. I mean, they would be open now. We're going to let them open sooner than the date. We're going to pick a date. We're going to get a date that's good, but it's going to be very, very soon, sooner than the end of the month. But there are many states out there that are looking at this and they're reviewing it and they're saying, we shouldn't be even included in this. You know, there are some that want to open up almost now. Now, if we disagree with it, we're not going to let them open. We're not going to let them open. If some governor said, you know, has a lot of problems, a lot of cases, a lot of death, and they want to open early, we're not going to let it happen. So we're there to watch. We're there to help. But we're also there to be critics. And on testing, very important, we've always wanted the states to do the testing. We're now providing great testing, but the state has to provide the great testing. The state has to provide the ventilators, but they didn't do that. So we ended up going into the ventilator business, essentially, and we've made tens of thousands of ventilators, and we solved a big problem for the states. But we want them to do the testing, and we are there to help. Yeah, please.
I have two questions, or I have a question on the
One
governor.
question, just one.
Well, I have a question on the governor. So first, can I follow up on
One
Jordan's
question. Go
Can I
ahead.
follow up on Jordan's question? Do you
Go ahead.
want to walk back where you did praise China?
Respectful of China. In the dollars in purchases. Let's see if they do that. And they're also paying us 25% on $250 billion in tariffs. So we're taking in, wait a minute, We're taking in billions of dollars for China from China. They never paid us 10 cents. That's a great thing. Now, if they don't produce or if we find out bad things, we're not going to be happy. But right now, and we're doing that. That's what we're doing. Look, we have an investigation underway. We're paying almost $500 million. We have an investigation underway on the World Health Organization. We will find out exactly what went on. And we may be satisfied that it can be remedied, and we may be satisfied that it's so bad that it can't be remedied. And if it can't, we're going to go a different route.
My question, you're criticizing the WHO for praising China for being transparent, but you also praise China for being transparent.
I don't
In
talk
January-
about China's transparency.
January, there's
Well,
a-
you know, if I'm so good to China, how come I was the only person, the only leader of a country that closed our borders tightly against China? And by the way, when I closed our border, that was long ahead of what anybody, you can ask anybody that was in the room, hundreds of thousands more death. Please,
I'm talking about how you
please,
said
that's
you were
enough. Thank you.
transparent.
Governors, they know when it's time to open, and we don't want to put pressure on anybody. I'm not going to put any pressure on any governor to open. I'm not going to say to Governor Cuomo, you got to open within 7 days. I want him to take his time, do it right, and then open New York. I'm not putting any pressure on the governors. Some of them don't need pressure or not pressure. I mean, they're ready to go. And that's a good thing. So we'll open it up in beautiful little pieces as it comes along. Please go ahead, behind you.
Yes, just a quick question. You spoke about Governor Cuomo. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on some of his remarks from earlier today, where he basically said that were New York to be pressured to be open, it would cause a constitutional crisis. And he basically said that you declared yourself King Trump. So I'm wondering if you heard those
I've
thoughts.
declared myself as king. You know, I heard he said that, but I didn't see the remarks, but he understands how we helped him. He needed help. We gave him 2,900 hospital beds. He didn't use them. We gave him a ship. He didn't use them. And I'm not saying, but I'm saying that's good because you know what? That means he didn't need them. But we said it was too much, but we wanted to err. We said, err on the side of caution, as I said. We said, look, we don't think you need it, but if you do, we're going to have them built. And the Army Corps of Engineers did a fantastic job. And the U.S. Navy did a fantastic job. And we moved a ship that was not meant for COVID. And we had it redesigned for COVID. But they still didn't have very many people going in. Now, we'll get along just fine. He understands. We'll get along just fine. Please.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, how do you assure workers in states that may reopen that are fearful about going back to work for fear of getting sick?
Talk up, please. Louder.
What's your assurance to workers who are asked to go back to work but are fearful of doing so?
Well, that's going to be up to the governors. The governors are going to want to make sure everything's safe. Now, I think that companies can do testing on a maybe weekly basis. You don't have to do it every day with the same worker, but they can do testing. They could do temperature gauges. They could do a lot of different things. And, you know, we're only talking about for a period of time. You know, eventually we want to get back to where we were. We want people actually sitting next to each other in ball games eventually. You know, we're not going to rip out every other seat in baseball stadiums and football stadiums. We want to go back to where we were. I want people to understand that. We're not going to be like the way you are. We have 300 reporters in the back that want to sit. Look at this, the way this looks. I don't even like the way it looks, although I have a lot fewer reporters. That's okay with me. But look at the way this looks. I've never seen anything, John. I've never seen anything quite like it. But there are a lot of people. We don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. Eventually, we're going back where restaurants that had 150 seats are going to have 150 seats, not 50 seats, because they can't make it at 50 seats. But more importantly, the atmosphere is even better. We have to get used to it. We have to get used to it. I don't know that people are going to be shaking hands as readily. Some will. I said to some of the hospital people today, so will people be shaking hands again? And I must say, I was a little surprised. Most of them said probably. because there is some kind of a thing to it. I was never a big handshaker, but when I ran for politics, I said, I think I better start shaking people's hands. Go ahead, John.
Mr. President, a couple of financial questions, if I could. Larry Kudlow said this morning that at the current run rate, the Paycheck Protection money will run out very soon. The plan to re-up it is stalled in Congress. What can you do as president to try to move that forward?
Well, we're trying to get it done. The problem is the Democrats want to put all sorts of things. Last time they put Center in, I hated putting Kennedy Center, and I have great respect for Kennedy Center. But I hated putting it in the bill because it's just not appropriate, right? But they wanted it in for whatever reason. They had their own political reason. And John, I said, watch the way that blows up, and it blew up. I think it blew up in their face. We want to take care of our workers. We'll worry about other. I think it blew up in their face. We want to take care of our workers. We'll worry about other things and other pet projects of Democrats and also Republicans later. But it's been a tremendously successful program. I think you see it. The banks have stepped up, hundreds of thousands of loan applications approved. Money is going out. It's been a tremendous program. Really, it's been. And obviously, it was at a point where we're almost, the money will be expired and we could use a refill for the workers. We want to be able to make sure that small businesses stay open, John. And I think that'll happen. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, today California's governor set out a list of 6 criteria for reopening the economy there. Did he consult with you on that? And also, you said earlier that there were as many as 20 states that could reopen their economies as early as May 1st. Could you list some?
No, I didn't say all of them by May 1st, but there are 20 states. Actually, I was given a number. 29 states are in very, very good shape. I don't want to say whether or not the governor spoke with me about that, but we've had a very good relationship, Gavin Newsom, and very, very good relationship. Yeah, in the back. Go ahead, please.
President, thank you very much. I have 2 questions. One is from a
One
person
question.
but the person who can't be here, and so I.
Who cares? If you can't be here, that's too bad, right?
All right. Well, one question that I have is about from the United Nations, the economist Maximo Torero says that there's a danger that the food supply could be interrupted during this pandemic, and I wanted to know what you're going to do about that.
Well, I think our farmers are incredible. They're producing levels of food like just unbelievable. Our transportation, that's one of the reasons I have the transportation people on the line tomorrow for the delivery of the food. No, we're doing phenomenally with the food. And I will say the stores, Kroger and Walmart, which does a lot of the food, and many of the stores, they seem to be in very good shape, but I haven't heard that at all. We're going to be very strong on food supply. Okay, how about one more question? Go
Mr.
ahead,
President.
please.
Yes, the death projections that you mentioned earlier are based on full social distancing until the end of May. So if you ease up on these guidelines now, how many more Americans do you think are
Well,
going
I'm
to die?
not easing up. First of all, we'll have guidelines, even for the states that open, and there'll be guidelines. But we will not have any problem with that. Your question's a very interesting question, but the states that are opening are not states which will have a problem with that. Plus, they will have to adhere to guidelines until a certain point into the future when the enemy is vanquished.
But the reason they don't have a problem now is because of social distancing. So if you
No,
ease the
the
guidelines,
reason they don't have is partially, and some of that will stay in effect. Much of it will stay in effect for a period of time. But the reason also is they're different kinds of states. They have lots of room. They have fewer people and they have lots of room. And that's one of the primary reasons. I want to thank you all very much. So a lot of positive things are happening. We're going to have some very strong recommendations for the governors. We're going to work with the governors. The governors are going to do a good job. And if they don't do a good job, we're going to come down on them very hard. We'll have no other choice. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Mr. President, to a point where we have millions and millions of tests.
You have been listening to the
There you go. You've been listening to President Trump during his little briefing. He's doing these briefings every day. I don't know where we're going to be at in Colorado, where we're going to be at in Woodland Park. I know in Teller County, we're somewhere right around 11 infected, or I think we have a couple of deaths in Teller County from the actual COVID. I could be wrong on the numbers. It's right around 11. Right now, I'm seeing people together. You know, there's some things that are still opened up around town. People in the grocery store are keeping their distance, but things are moving. Businesses haven't started opening up, and we are encouraging people to go after, you know, if you can support a local business, whether it be a food business or an online business or order out. You know, we're still seeing some stuff locally kick off virtually. There's virtual dance classes happening. I know Parks and Rec is doing some virtual scavenger hunts for the kids, but it's starting to take its toll on people being closed day after day after day after day. And on top of that, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the city political realm that is actually costing taxpayers money. So we'll see where we go. Right now, we're still in quarantine, locked up in the beautiful city of Woodland Park, Colorado. Hey, thanks for joining the Woodland Park Underground. You can check out more right here on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you guys later.